each other, whose God is best, whose religion is best. Let's just put all of that stuff to one side for a minute. It's easy to disagree about things. Let's instead try and find some common ground, something that we can unite behind. I'm here trying to talk about inequality that exists in our society, some of the reasons why inequality is growing, and some of the things we might do to try and take some of the power back that has been stripped away from us. The world as it runs right now is not sustainable, it is not equitable, and it is not sensible. Our financial system runs on debt. Money is produced only in response to the need for a loan. That money then requires the payment of interest, but the money to pay the interest is never created, so there is constantly a shortfall in our financial system. Defaults, bankruptcies are an inevitable consequence of this. Our political system is producing ever more divisive and extreme leaders. Look at Trump, look at Le Pen, look at the rise of the far right throughout Europe. This is going on right now, and it's getting worse. Our media spreads lies, it spreads fear, it spreads messages of division and distrust, setting us against each other, barring us from collaborating with each other and actually solving some of the real problems that exist here right now. Consumerism and credit have run completely out of control. In order to keep getting cheap goods on our shelves, we are exploiting workers in poor countries, got children as young as 4 working for less than $1 a day to mine cobalt so that we can have mobile phones. We live it up here in the Western world, while poor people all over the place are being essentially murdered through slave labor. Even here in rich countries, our prisoners are paid as little as 30 cents a day to assemble goods so that we can have cheap stuff on our shelves, because so long as we can keep buying cheap goods, we don't ask too many questions about our masters, about what's actually going on in the world. Our system is dysfunctional in dozens and dozens of ways, not to mention unbelievably wasteful. Here's an excellent example. There are 32 million cars currently registered in the UK. Of those 32 million cars, anything between 80 and 99% of them at any given moment are inactive. They're sat, parked on the side of the road somewhere, not being used, not serving anyone, blocking 2 lanes that could potentially be used for the flow of traffic. All of that metal, all of that rubber, all of that glass just sat there, not doing anything. In a sensible world, we would have come up by now with some kind of co-ownership scheme, some kind of sharing of these resources, rather than having them sit there inactive. Our energy is still our electricity rather, is still primarily produced by the burning of fossil fuels. The battery, believe it or not, was invented back in 1800. The hydrogen fuel cell, 1839. Solar panels, 1954. Windmills, water mills have been around for centuries. There's geothermal, which hasn't even begun to be exploited yet. Tidal power hasn't even begun to be exploited yet. Why is research not going into these things? Because more money for oil companies constantly selling us an ever-growing supply of oil. The car thing. Why do we not have driverless automated electric cars on the road already? The technology exists. The reason is very simple. Changing tyres, refueling cars, financing the purchase of new cars on debt, servicing, MOTs, road tax. All of these things are revenue streams for corporations and governments, and it is entirely coercive. We do not get a choice in this. We pay our taxes, it's taken out of our salary before we even get our money. What are our taxes spent on? Bailing out bankers, refurbishing our Trident missile system, building pointless HS2. Oh God, sorry, I've lost my thread. I just need to refer to notes. Forgive me, I'm new to this. I'm still learning. Wrong way. Sorry. I will get. Oh yeah. So our farmers in rich countries are paid to massively overproduce certain crops, and then paid again, believe it or not, to destroy those crops. All of that surplus food production is more than enough to feed all the starving of the world right now, today. Our pharmaceutical companies are making hundreds of billions in profits every year, and yet I could not believe this stat when I read it, and yet 100,000 people die every single day on this planet, 1/3 of them children, due to poverty and preventable disease. In a sensible world, that kind of shit just could not happen. In our world, when a job is automated, when a robot it takes over the job, what happens? People get laid off. They don't get wages anymore. They can't support themselves. They can't feed their families. In a sensible world, just 1 minute and then I'll gladly take some questions if that's all right. In a sensible world, automation of a dull, boring, repetitive, dangerous job. No, I'm all right. I think I can be heard, but thank you. An automation of a job like that should be called for celebration, right? Because people don't have to do it anymore. More time to spend with their families.
Eric,
more time to spend on leisure.
Do you mind if he puts in the book? He's supposed to record you for his
Oh no, oh I see.
Yeah.
In that case, not at all. I thought you meant as an amplifier. I thought that was what you meant. No, I'm happy for that.
Lovely, Eric.
Where was I? Oh yeah, so in a sensible world, automation of a job would be applauded, would be celebrated, because it means less shitty work for people to do. Our educational system deliberately dumbs children down so that they can't be critical thinkers. It makes fertile soil for the myths to be planted by our news agencies, by our media, by our propagandists, by our advertising companies, by our marketing firms. In a sensible world, thank you. In a sensible world, young people would be educated to be free thinkers, to challenge the status quo, to challenge prevailing wisdom, to come up with imaginative solutions to problems, rather than some prescriptive curriculum. Learn these bunch of boring old facts that you can look up on the internet anyway, and then we will assess you on your ability to regurgitate those facts, and if you do a good job, we'll give you an A. What the fuck is that all about? But the fact is that we do not live in a sensible world. In our world, children care very much more about outcomes than they do about learning. They can care much more about their image than they do about their character, more about popularity than about integrity, more about blame than about responsibility. This is it's not their fault, this is a direct reflection of the society in which they are growing up. Yeah, our values have been twisted and corrupted. In our world, people spend more time with their phones than they do with their friends. People spend more money on servicing their debts than they do on servicing their families. In our world, get this is another unbelievable stat. In our world, 70% of arable land is used to grow food, not for people, for cows. And in the meantime, governments pay subsidies to companies to chop down rainforest to make room for grazing for cows. And then those cows, because that is shitty grazing land, those cows have to be fed on the grain, which is then imported for over thousands of miles. We overproduce cattle, then what happens? The excess beef is ground up, fed back to the cows again, and this is where BSE came from. This is insanity, this is madness, and this is the way we run our society. So, the final question is, I suspect most of you are already wondering, all right, fine, yeah, great, I agree with you. These are all big problems. What can we do about it, right? Becomes the next question. And this is the hardest of all of the questions, because the fact is, change is not going to come from the top down. The 200 or 300 million people, and I don't mean God, I mean our governments and corporations and banks, it is not in their interest to try and change anything, because they're already doing very nicely, thank you very much. The bottom 3 or 4 billion people on this planet are doing everything they can from day to day just to survive. So it's up to us. It's up to us, the middle class and the working people in rich countries. It's up to us to find solutions to these problems. Where are we going to find these solutions? Well, technology, by embracing technology and by embracing human ingenuity and trusting that these things can solve all of our problems for us. But we can't rely on governments to do it. We can't rely on corporations to do it. They have their own agendas of making money, sucking our labour, sucking our creativity for their own ends.
Eric,
so,
can you elaborate more on how do you mean by we embrace technology? Are you talking about alternative fuel sources?
I'm talking about in every way, so alternative fuel sources, but what I'm talking about is people coming up with local solutions to local problems, not relying on governments to sort their stuff out for them, but empowering themselves and their communities and sorting things out for themselves. And we have one thing now, because you know what? Rich people have been exploiting poor people for thousands of years. This is nothing new, right? But what's different between now and any time in history history is the internet. For the first time ever, we have the power to communicate on a global scale. And so one community comes up with a solution to a problem, they can immediately communicate that solution everywhere else. Other people can take that solution, adapt it, refine it for their own needs, and by sharing in an open source way, by communicating, forming networks and relationships with other people and with other communities, we can start finding our own solutions, start educating our own children for things that we think are going to be of value to them in later life. Start coming up with our own ways of sourcing and purifying water. Start coming up with our own ways of generating energy and growing food. You know, get our basic survival needs covered by ourselves, and then we can start ignoring the apparatus, the central control apparatus, and in time, hopefully, this is my dream, in time, as communities become more powerful, more independent, more connected to each other, that central control systems of government and finance and politics and legal systems will become irrelevant, outmoded, outdated, obsolete. They are no longer needed. They are no longer fit for purpose. We can sort our own lives out. I read a really interesting book recently. It was talking about chaos theory as it relates to social structures. Chaos theory is about complex systems, lots and lots and lots of individual parts, all doing their own thing but connected and are part of a larger system. Chaotic systems naturally, automatically find ways of self-organising, and this is what we have to trust that our society will do. We do not need central power structures to tell us what to do. We do not need central power structures to tell us what is right and wrong. We know in our own hearts, in our own conscience, what is right and wrong. We do not need laws and governments to tell us these things. We need to trust in our creativity, in our ingenuity, and in our ability to make tools to do the jobs that we need to do. And then, as I say, the centralised power structures that currently exist will crumble away. They will simply fade away into non-existence, and we can then, I hope, build something new and more resembling an actual human society out of the rubble.
Eric, what's your opinions on freedom of speech? Is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Freedom of speech is absolute as far as I'm concerned. Okay. Anyone should be able to say anything they want, and if people don't want to listen to it, they can walk away. Do you know what I mean? If they don't agree with it, or if they find it hateful or hurtful or whatever, just walk away. You don't need to punch the guy, right? You don't need to shoot the guy just because you disagree with him.
That's right.
So yeah, freedom of speech should be absolute, in my opinion.
Excellent.
But yeah, please engage me in conversation. That's my throat is getting a little bit sore, but I've got some little things here to hand out, some website addresses where you can maybe learn a little bit more if you're interested.
This thing about where we all get a certain amount of money or something.
That is one. I mean, under the existing system, that is one way of moving forward. Is the universal basic income.
It takes the pressures away.
Yeah, they're trialing it now.
I'll have a look.
Yeah. They're trialing it now in a couple.
I'll tell you
of
what,
places.
because somebody gave me this the other day and I forgot what it was about. I'm gonna have a look at it sometime.
Great.
So
Finland, they're trying it. Scotland, they're trialing it, and in I think Kenya. I could be wrong about it. It's definitely somewhere in Africa. I think Kenya. But yeah, it is being trialled, and I mean, the fact is that more and more and more jobs will be automated over the coming decades, right? And we're going to have hundreds of millions of people with no job to do anymore. So what are they going to do? You know, I think one of the myths that's propagated to keep us separate and to keep us not challenging authority is that without a controlling authority, people are lazy and selfish and will just sit around scratching their asses. No one will contribute. I don't believe that. I believe human nature to be more positive than that, and that human nature has been corrupted and perverted by our social constructs. Please take. Anyone take? My throat's getting very sore. I'm running out of steam here. But if anyone wants to ask anything or make a point, I'm really happy. Really happy for this to be interactive. I don't want it all to be lectury, you know what I mean? No?
So what would you say, how did we get to the situation we're in right now?
Oh, it's happened over a very long time. Like I said, I mean, if you go back as far as the Egyptians, that's what, 4,000 or 5,000 years ago.
So a gentleman here says it's capitalism.
What? Sorry, says what's capitalism?
Well, I would have thought capitalism would come up at some point in this tirade.
You got a problem with capitalism?
Well, it depends on what subject we're talking about.
It's the interface of capitalism with central government is the problem. I mean, for example, what is universal credits? What are universal credits?
It's a benefit.
It's a benefit which is paid to people who don't get enough money from their jobs, right? To top it up so that they can function.
You
in the
can be
world, so that they
unemployed
can-
and get universal
But
credit.
Looked at a slightly different way, what it actually is a government subsidy to corporations to underpay their workers,
So
right?
that's only in the case of those who are working. It also goes to people who don't work,
Also goes to people who don't work. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. What?
and they're the bigger number.
What than people on top? I'm not sure that's true, but I don't have the numbers to hand. I don't want to argue because I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. But another, you know, there's been a lot in the papers over the last couple of years about big corporations not paying their fair share of tax. Their argument being that, well, our employees all pay income tax. We pay VAT on all of our purchases, etc.
Well, everyone agrees that argument fails.
Sorry?
So everyone agrees that that argument fails. So the parliamentary committees that have looked into this, Apple, Google, Uber, Facebook, eBay, right. So the question now is, how internationally do you make that work? Because if one country starts taxing these corporations, they'll move.
It's very simple. You make each corporation pay its own taxes in each country. They have a separate company that operates in each
So
country.
that means you need
and
a
that company
right.
pays the
right.
tax in that
Fine.
country.
That's one way out.
It's
But
relatively-
that means you need.
relatively straightforward.
No, it isn't relatively straightforward because some countries
concept it is.
base the structure of their economy